So I'm going to talk today about the targeted therapy from different perspectives, from an economic perspective. So I have four key objectives for this presentation. First of all, to introduce the concept of targeted therapy from an economic point of view. Then we will discuss together the economic value of targeted therapy. After that, exploring the major challenges with respect to the use of pharmacoeconomic evidence in targeted therapy decision-making process. And then I will discuss different measures to reduce the cost of new treatment advances in oncology in general. So just let me begin with a slide to set the stage in terms of targeted therapy. So as you all know, targeted therapy is a type of cancer treatment that use drugs or other substance in identifying and attacking specific cancer cells with less or no harm to normal cells. They kill a cancer cell by either targeting therapies that block the action of certain enzymes or molecules involved in the growth of those cancer cells, or by helping the immune system in killing cancer cells, or directly delivering toxic substance to cancer cells. So with targeting only cancer cells, this targeted therapy may have fewer side effects compared to old or conventional treatment. So instead of one-size-fits-all approach that was used before, we have now a treatment that targets specific treatments for specific patients. So targeted therapy is providing the promise of improved efficacy, improved decision-making, improved safety profile and tolerance, reduce the unnecessary exposure to ineffective drugs, improved counseling, and providing more focus on individual preferences with, of course, lower costs. So this slide shows the shows some of the successful targeted treatments that were emerged from the genomic revolution. Most prominently, of course, is the use of herceptin in both early and metastatic breast cancer, and also the use of TKIs for AML, and before before we have these agents, imatinib, erlotinib, and dasatinib, stem cell transplantation was the only treatment option for those patients. And we also have the ones on the bottom, crizotinib and zelboraf. And so lots of good examples on this slide. So now let's talk about some data around the utilization of targeted therapy in the world. Over the past 5 years, 57 newly launched oncology drugs received approval for almost 89 indications, with some of them treating multiple tumor types. And as you can see in this figure, around 30%. I don't know if you can see the pointer here, or I can use pointer. So in the left side of this graph that more than 30% of the indications were for, of the approvals were for hematological indications. And the increase in approvals was driven by more approvals in targeted therapy. Here we explore the most notable successes in 2018 in terms of drug approvals for leukemia, breast cancer, and ovarian cancer. As you can see here, additional approvals for non-small cell lung cancer, 3 approvals for AML, 1 of them for adults aging 75 or more, and the approval of the first anti-RK inhibitor. This slide shows some data around the R&D of targeted therapy. The drugs that are now on latest stage oncology pipeline included around 850 molecules in 2018, an increase of more than 77% since 2018. And this was again driven by the increase in number of targeted therapy. As you can see in dark green and blue, targeted small molecules and targeted biologics makes more than 90% of the number of oncology drugs on late stage pipeline. So this graph shows the HTA or health technology assessments conducted in oncology. As you can see, drugs with a lot of or a greater number of HTAs are getting nods from HTA agents in the last 5 years, especially in France and Germany, with less assessments with positive results in the UK. So this is the most important slide for my presentation, which shows the oncology spending. And as you can see, the total spending on oncology reached around 150 billion in 2018. There was growth in therapeutics by almost 16%, with a slight decline in the cost of supportive care. Mainly, this is believed to be driven by the reduction in the cost of GCSF agents, as they were replaced recently by biosimilars. The same with erythropoietin treatment. This is a forecast of the cost of or total spending on oncology in the world from 2014, from 2019 to 2023. As you can see, it is expected to reach 240 billion with a growth rate of between 9 to 12%. So now let's talk about the economic perspective of targeted therapy. From an economist's point of view, the economic value is, or value is, how much the patient is willing to pay for a new drug or diagnostic. And this is definitely is based on how much this drug can be or can produce savings, whether it extends our lives, whether it comes with improvement in terms of quality of life, and then we can combine those in what we call quality adjusted life here. And of course, there is the value of information, or the reduction in uncertainty. So we've seen the eye-popping figures of the total spending of oncology drugs in general and targeted therapy in particular. And this poses an important question regarding why those targeted agents are very expensive. First of all, definitely pricing is multifactorial, but like any product in the market, demand is the most important factor. And for cancer drugs, the willingness to pay to buy those drugs is usually high, even with drugs that provide benefit. There is also the production costs, which is usually high. It needs high technology to produce these drugs. There's also the high cost of R&D, then the potential market size, which is small, so companies need to improve or increase the price to get benefits. Then there is the price of comparable drugs that affect the, yes?
Dr. Hana, if you can get close, yeah, if you get closer, if you can get closer to the microphone, because from time to then we tend to lose your with your voice, please.
Okay. I apologize. Is it better now?
Yes, it is much better now.
Muhammad,
If you stay like
better?
that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please let me know if you lose me again. So the other factor is the innovation or the novelty and value of the new product, whether there is, for example, unmet need in this disease. So there are also additional costs associated with targeted therapy that are not associated with other treatment options, which are the cost of enrolling people, screening them, stratifying the patient population, personalization, collection, recording, tracking of data, tailoring the intervention to a specific group of patients, and of course, monitoring the patients. So now let's talk about the role of pharmacoeconomics to targeted treatments. Definitely, targeted therapy raises an important concern with regard to reimbursement, even in countries with good economies and high GDP, because of the affordability of those drugs. And as I said, due to uncertainty around the overall value of those products. So payers increasingly require evidence of cost effectiveness, in addition to the clinical benefit, of course, to ensure that they are using to ensure the optimal resource allocation. So pharmacoeconomics can be used in the formulary management, for example, in the inclusion or exclusion of targeted therapy on or from in setting priorities, whether you want to choose this drug or that. And also it can guide development of practice guidelines that can promote the most cost-effective use of those agents. And also it is being used widely to guide evidence-based negotiations with industry, of course. So the most important question here is targeted therapy cost effective or not? As we all seen, it's very expensive, used for small number of patients, require additional costs, and the question here is it cost effective or not? Well, since in theory targeted therapy promised to include of medicine by delivering better outcomes to more people for less money. And this can be done at different levels. First, by reducing the unnecessary cost of treating non-responders, and we will see a practical example on that, increasing or improving patient access to those medications, reducing the overall cost, and reducing uncertainty. So let's take the first level, reducing the unnecessary cost of treating non-responder. As you can see in the first or the in the conventional therapy, for example, cancer patients with colon cancer, all of them are getting the same therapy. Improved efficacy. Some of them will not see any effect of the drug, and some of them will develop adverse effects. While on the other hand, with targeted therapy, the patients will be screened and they will receive their therapies based on their mutation, and the right patient will receive the right treatment. So the overall improved efficacy is definitely greater than in inclusion. Also, while we are targeting only responders, this could lead to greater volume of adaptation because now we can provide the treatment to more patients as we saved. We are not giving the medication to people who will not respond. Reducing the overall cost by reducing the overall utilization of healthcare resources and services, for example, reducing improving productivity and work days, reducing the healthcare use of services, reducing the time the patient reaches the service, and also reduced the need for diagnostics. As I said, there is a value for the information. So while you can, with targeted therapy, predict the patient outcomes, this reduce the risk, the cost of uncertainty. So in general, is targeted therapy cost effective? In theory, yes. Targeted therapy has the potential to improve the population health outcomes in general and improve the cost effectiveness of healthcare by using patient-level heterogeneity in cost and health outcomes. However, in practice, there is deficiencies or knowledge gaps in the clinical and economic evidence-based. And based, as we are doing most of these economic evaluation based on assumptions, this may make the economic case for precision medicine difficult to be demonstrated. So here an example of a study that looks at the effect of pharmacogenetic profiling on clinical decision. As you can see, the patients in this study received more than 3 therapies, the population. So after doing the pharmacogenetic profiling to reduce drug-drug interactions, patients were discharged, and after 60 days, the data collected again, and it revealed that the pharmacogenetic profiling reduced the hospital readmission by more than 52%, visits by 42%, and generate healthcare savings more than 4,300 patients per patient, $4,300 per patient. Another example here, as you all know, in 2005, Giftinib was approved for the treatment of non-small cell lung cancer, and after other clinical trials that revealed that there is heterogeneity in the response of patients to Giftinib, consequently FDA and EMA granted marketing authorization for the drug in patients with non-small cell lung cancer that only have active mutations of EGFR TK. So the economic case of Giftinib is based here on the promise of improved clinical effectiveness by stratifying the population of non-small cell lung cancer patients by EGFR status. So in 2010, the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence in England published their technology assessment of Giftinib, and based on the result of economic evaluation that suggested that it can lead to cost saving. For example, here we see that 16,700 patients are diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer. So if the patients were not tested for EGFR, they will be receiving Giftinib, and the total cost here is 104 million euro per year. While if we test the patients, 1,700 will be, more than 1,700 will be positive, and the cost of treating those patients is 35 million euro per year. Patients who are negative will be around 15,000 patients, and they will receive other treatment options here, and the cost is around 70 million euro annually. So we can see that there is an economic value of targeted therapy here. Another study here, patients who are diagnosed with early stage non-small cell lung cancer, whether either tested to if they have, or categorized if they have aggressive or less aggressive form of non-small cell lung cancer. If they are aggressive, they will be offered chemotherapy. if they have the less aggressive form, they will not receive chemotherapy, and they will be spared the cost of chemotherapy and the side effect of treatment with chemotherapy that was likely to be less effective for them. So the cost effectiveness analysis showed that those who were tested lived in general lived longer, had better quality of life for longer time compared to those who were not tested. So there are different methods to incorporating pharmacoeconomic evidence in targeted therapy decision making. First of all, doing cost effectiveness analysis. Sure. Value-based reimbursement models, such as the early access agreements with industry, and there are different types of coverage model that can be used. And then, of course, the most important and the best or the ideal way is economic evaluation alongside clinical trials. So there are, in general, limitations to the use of pharmacoeconomics or health economics in targeted therapy. First of all, it is challenging to collect data supporting the economic case for targeted therapy due to limited sample size in those trials, lack of some of the patient-specific information, such as patient-reported outcomes, quality of life information, the out-of-pocket costs, and other medical resource utilization data. There is also lack of head-to-head trials and real-world evidence. Also, another important point is that the traditional cost-effectiveness analysis usually focusing on typical patients, and they fail to recognize the real-world heterogeneity in different patient populations. Also, there is difficulty in applying the cost-effectiveness approaches on diagnostics. So how can we reduce the cost of new treatment advances in general? We need alignment between payers and providers, collaboration with industry, laboratories, and other organizations. We need to familiarize ourselves with value-based system that can considers the overall value of the drug and the cost effectiveness. We need to invest more on policies that support the widespread adoption of innovative targeted therapies. We need to have more of clinically relevant, unbiased, good quality, cost effectiveness studies. We need to set a threshold or willingness to pay threshold to our population. Also modifying the clinical trial designs to optimize the efficiency of drug development, and to work on national frameworks for establishing value-based prices for those drugs. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you very much.